Okay, this will be a bit of a different sort of podcast. Every Friday here at the Torch Center, my brother, Rabbi Aryeh Wolbe, has a class in the Torch Center in Houston, Texas. He calls it the Thinking Talmudist class. And he goes through a piece in Talmud to people here in the Torch Center and on Zoom. And this morning, this Friday, he asked me if I would sit in for him and if I would be a substitute for him. And I agreed to do it. I said, you know what, I'll record it. Maybe it'll come out good. Maybe I'll release it on the podcast. So here it is. It's a very different style than we typically do here. It's much more interactive. There were some questions that were interjected in the discussion. But let me know if you enjoy this sort of format. We could do more of them. My email address is rabbiwolbe@gmail.com. And here it is. I guess the guest post as the sit-in for the Thinking Talmudist in place of my brother this week. Email address is rabbiwolbe@gmail.com. It's a great privilege to be sitting here in the vaunted seat of the Thinking Talmudist class. My brother asked me to fill in for him, and I was so honored and so privileged. And I hope I could live up to this wonderful institution. The piece of Talmud that I selected to study today relates to our Parsha. And that's because at the end of our Parsha, we have the second mitzvah in the Torah. And that's the mitzvah of circumcision, bris milah. Abraham is told, walk before me and be perfect. And how is Abraham to perfect himself? So God tells him, you're not perfect quite yet. You have an imperfection. You have a blemish. Namely, you have this extra piece of your body that must be removed in order to achieve perfection. The idea of the circumcision is that the Almighty created us not completely perfect, meaning we have to do something to perfect ourselves. And we symbolize that physically with the circumcision, with the removal of the arla of the foreskin, and thus the revelation of the crown as it is known in the literature. And that is symbolic of really what our life is all about, that we are not perfect, and the Almighty wants us to perfect ourselves in a great many areas, in our character, in our ideology, in our interpersonal behavior, in our relationship with the Almighty, in our relationship with ourselves, with our communities, with our families, with our children. Our job here is to unlock the greatness that is destined for us. So I wanted to pick a teaching on the Talmud that relates to circumcision and maybe to study it on a little bit of a deeper level. This is found in the book of Kiddushin on page 29a. And it's a very famous teaching in the Talmud. And I want to start with the Mishnah. Kol mitzvos haben al ha'av, all obligations of the son upon the father. If a parent has responsibilities to do something for their son, it's the obligation of the father and not the mother. We'll see what that means. Okay. V'chol mitzvos ha'av al haben, and obligations that a child has to do for a father, meaning a child for a parent, echad hanashim ve'echad chayavim. Both men and women are obligated. So there are obligations that go both ways in the parental and filial relationships. Parents have obligations towards their children, and children have obligations towards their parents. And the Mishnah tells us that when it comes to the parent's obligation towards the child, it's on the father and not on the mother. And when it comes to the obligations of the child to the parent, it's both male and female, meaning boy and girl, brother and sister, son and daughter are both obligated in the obligations from child to parent. Okay, continues the Mishnah. V'chol mitzvos aseh shahazman gerama, and all positive mitzvos that are time caused, meaning that in a certain time that mitzvah gets triggered, and when that time is there, the mitzvah is active, is present, is activated, is obligatory, and when the time is not there, then the mitzvah is not present. Okay, so what would that be, like festivals? You think of festivals like when it's the lulav season. It's only during 7 days a year we shake the lulav. And then when there's the eating matzah, maybe that would qualify as well. We only wear tefillin by day, only wear tzitzis by day, and so on. At night, the time says you don't wear the tefillin, you don't wear the tzitzis, all positive, time-bound mitzvos, then men are obligated and women are not. So tefillin, tzitzis, as we mentioned. V'chol mitzvah shelo hazman drama, all mitzvahs that are not time-bound. Echad anashim ve'echad anashim chayavim. So if it's a mitzvah that's not time-bound, it's all the time, it has no relationship to time, then men and women are obligated. V'chol mitzvahs lo saseh, and any negative mitzvah, meaning a prohibition, bein shazman garama, bein shelo hazman garama, whether it's time-bound or not, echad ha'anashim ve'echad anashim chayavim. Both men and women are obligated. Okay. So what are we learning over here? That's the Mishnah. There's two parts of the Mishnah. First part is the mitzvos of parents to children, children to parents. From parents to children, the father is obligated, not the mother. We'll see a list of that later on. The mitzvahs for child to parent, it's both men and women. And then we have the question of time-bound mitzvos versus not time-bound mitzvos. If it's a negative mitzvah, it's a restriction, it's a prohibition, it doesn't matter. Everyone's obligated. So for example, don't do work on a festival. That's a verse in the Torah. Don't do work on a festival. It's time-bound, it's only during the festival, but it's a negative mitzvah, it's a prohibition. And then women are obligated as much as men are. However, when it comes to a positive time-bound mitzvah, then men are obligated and women are not. Okay, that's the Mishnah. What I want to do is jump a little bit here to the Talmud. Tana Rabbanon, so the sages teach. Ha'av, the father, chayiv bibno, is obligated towards his son. What are the list of mitzvahs that a parent has to do for the child? Number 1, limolo, to circumcise him. If the Almighty blesses someone with a son, 8 days after the birth, meaning the day of the birth counts, so therefore, child's born on Sunday, 8 days is also a Sunday. That's easy to figure it out. Child's born on a Monday, 8 days later is also a Monday, because you count that day, even if it's only a few minutes, it's counted as a full day. So child's born on Monday, the next Monday will be 8 days, circumcision. Child's born on a Tuesday, the Tuesday will be a circumcision, and so on. Child's born on Shabbos. When's the circumcision? It's on Shabbos. Why? Ubayom hashmini afilu b'Shabbos. The Torah tells us explicitly that the 8th day must be the day of the circumcision. And that means that whatever the 8th day is, even if it's Shabbos, typically the action of circumcision would be a violation of Shabbos. But because the Torah says explicitly to circumcise him even on the Shabbos, if it's day 8, we override, the mitzvah of circumcision overrides the prohibition of Shabbos, and the child is circumcised on Shabbos. I had, in fact, the great privilege. My son Yehoshua was born on Shabbos, and we circumcised him on Shabbos, even though typically to take a scalpel and to do a minor surgery would be a violation of Shabbos, unless, of course, it's a life-threatening situation, then you would violate the Shabbos, of course. But typically, if it's not a life-threatening violation, you would postpone an elective surgery to after Shabbos because it would be a violation of Shabbos. However, because the circumcision must be on day 8, provided the child's healthy and able to withstand that and so on, and other factors are present, the child will be circumcised on Shabbos, even though it would be, in other contexts, a violation of the Shabbos. Okay, so what are the list of things that a father has to do to a son? First thing is circumcision. Now, what does that mean? You got to take a really sharp knife, you got to do a circumcision. Well, what if you were never trained to do circumcision? Don't practice on your kids, please. Do me a favor. Don't practice on your kids. This is not something that you give to an amateur. This is something done by a professional. So the father is obligated to hire a professional, to find someone who does know how to do it and is an expert and can do it professionally. That's what it means. It means not necessarily to do it literally, but it means to effectuate it, which is why the father makes a blessing, even though it doesn't do the actual mitzvah of the circumcision. The mohel would do it. Father makes the blessing because it's the father's mitzvah. La'achniso b'riso shel Avram Avinu, to enter the child of the covenant of Abraham. Okay, that's the first of our list. Ulivdoso, and to redeem him. What does that mean? To redeem him. To redeem him means when a child is a firstborn and the father and the mother are neither Levites or Kohanim, and the child was the firstborn, meaning there wasn't even a miscarriage or anything like that beforehand, and the child was born naturally, meaning it wasn't a C-section. Lots and lots of different factors and variables have to be in place. But if there is a firstborn male, that child belongs to the Kohen, because that child's really a Kohen in disguise. Yes, the child is the property of the Kohen, and you have to redeem him. You got to buy him back. What does that mean? When the child's 30 days old, that's the point where the child is considered to be viable, meaning we know for sure this is a healthy child. So of course, things can happen even to healthy children, but that's the point of viability. And at that time, the child is redeemed, is bought back from the Kohen, 5 silver coins. Now, your child's Kaliki and Kvetchi and where you get by night, you don't have the option to give him to the Kohen. It's an obligation. You must redeem him for 5 silver coins from the Kohen when the child is 30 days old. It's part of the package responsibilities of the father to the son. Okay, next thing. V'lilamdo Torah, and to teach him Torah. Part of the responsibilities of the father toward the son is to teach him Torah. Okay. V'lahasio isha, and to marry him off to a woman, meaning to help prepare him for life and to marry him off. V'lilamdo umnus, and to teach him a trade or a craft or a profession, to give him the training he needs to, so that he can provide for himself and his family. V'yesh omrim, and some say, af lehashito b'mayim, even to teach him how to swim, because there's lots of water in this world. 70% of the world is covered in water, and it's very important to know how to swim, because if you don't, you could end up in the water without knowing how to swim, and that could be very disastrous. So you got to prepare for your child also for the different circumstances that may be dangerous, to teach him how to navigate and how to thrive and endure in those circumstances. Concludes the Talmud. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol she'eino melamed es b'no umnus, if someone does not teach their son a trade or a craft or a profession or an occupation, then they are teaching him something. The absence of teaching is an active teaching of something else. Namely, milamdo listus, you're teaching him to be a criminal. If you don't teach the child to provide in a way that is proper, upstanding, if you don't teach him a trade, says Rabbi Yehuda, you actually are teaching him. The absence of teaching, the omission of teaching, is teaching them to steal, which is obviously terrifying. Says the Gemara, listus, wait, do you actually mean to say that you're teaching him? You're not teaching him how to steal. You don't teach him to become a jewel thief, to go to the Louvre and go steal the jewels in broad daylight. That's not what you're actually teaching him. You're just not teaching him, says the Talmud. No. Doesn't mean you're actually teaching him. You're effectively teaching him. You're effectively teaching him to be a thief. Because if someone does not know how to provide for themselves, and they're not endowed, or they're not trained, reared, taught with a profession they can provide for themselves in an honest way, they will provide for themselves in a dishonest way. So it's effectively teaching someone to be a thief. Okay. The Talmud is now going to go through each one of these responsibilities of the father towards the son, one at a time. So what do we have? We have a law. The father must provide certain services for their son, and it's on the father, not the mother. And what's that list? Number 1, circumcision. Number 2, redemption, if he's a firstborn. Redeem him from the Kohen. Number 3, teach him Torah. Number 4, to marry him off. Number 5, to teach him a profession. And some say, number 6, to teach him how to swim. These are the 6 responsibilities of the father towards their son. Now the Talmud is going to go through these one at a time to explain them and to explicate them. The Mishnah taught us a principle, that this list of 6 obligations that a parent has to a child, men are obligated, women are not obligated. So suppose the mother, she wants to circumcise the child, or she could do it, but she's not obligated to do it. If a father says, I don't want to circumcise my son, it's an obligation. He's obligated to do it. He doesn't do it, he could be even compelled to do it. It's his obligation. And you're not providing what you're obligated to provide. So a court can enforce it. because it's an obligation. But the Talmud's question is, what is the source in the Torah? What's the source in Scripture that says that when it comes to circumcising a child, it's the obligation on the father and not on the mother? Says the Talmud, limolo minalon, to circumcise the son, that is the obligation on the father, not the mother. Where do we know that from? What is the scriptural source that tells us that the father and not the mother? The father is obligated, but not the mother. What's the source? Citation needed. What's the citation? Says the Talmud, dichsiv, because the verse says in this upcoming week's Parsha, Vayamal Avraham es Yitzchak beno. Abraham circumcised Isaac, his son. So we see that a father circumcises his son. We don't quite know. Maybe the father did it, but the mother could have done it. How do you know? You have to turn over every stone here. Well, maybe the father did it, but maybe the mother could have done it. And it would be obligated equally. It happens to be that Abraham did it. That's Thomas' next question. We'll get to that in a second. Thomas is going to go a little bit of a side question, and then we're going to go back to the main subject. What happens if the father didn't do it for one reason or another? Let's say it could be tragic, but let's say the father's not with us anymore. Maybe that would be a case. Maybe the father is just not a good person, or he's out of town. I don't know. The father didn't do it for one reason or another. What happens with this child? Do we let them stay uncircumcised? Says the Talmud. Heicha delo mahale avua, when the father did not circumcise him, mechayvi beidina lemimhale, the Beis Din, the court, which means the Jewish community, is obligated to circumcise him. Why? Dichsiv quotes a verse. Himol lachem kol zachar. All of you, meaning you're the nation, every male should be circumcised. Meaning there's obligation on the father, and if he doesn't do it, then there's another obligation that kicks in that the whole community has to make sure that every male is circumcised. Okay. What happens if the court doesn't do it? I don't know why. Maybe there's no court. Maybe they grew up by themselves, and maybe it was illegal. I don't know. Maybe no one knew. For one reason or another, the father didn't do it. The court didn't do it. Is the child just left like that? Okay, let's see what the Talmud says. If the court doesn't do it, father doesn't do it, court doesn't do it, he's obligated to circumcise himself. Meaning it's obligation of every individual to make sure that they themselves are circumcised. This is another verse which says that an uncircumcised male will be removed, be cut off, will be excommunicated and disenfranchised from the people. Which is a way of saying that if someone, God forbid, is uncircumcised, father didn't do it, court didn't do it, they are obligated to circumcise themselves. Okay. So we have a subject. The subject is obligations of parents towards children. We have a list of different instances where that can play out, meaning the different areas of obligation, which is circumcision, redemption, so on, teaching Torah, getting him married, teaching him how to swim, teaching him a profession. And the Talmud's taking it one at a time, and we're talking about the subject is now circumcision. And how do we know that the father's obligated? Because we see a verse, Abraham did it. And then we see, okay, it's a little side point. Well, if the father doesn't do it, if the court doesn't do it, then he does it himself. Now the next question is, how do we know that the woman, meaning the mother, is not obligated? You prove that the father is obligated. Well, maybe the father is obligated in addition to the mother being obligated. How do you know that it's to the exclusion of the mother being obligated? Says the Talmud, Ihi, her, meaning the mom, minalan delo mechayva. How do we know that the mother is not obligated? Maybe the mother's obligated in addition to the father being obligated. Because Abraham, well, he did it. Well, maybe Sarah could have done it. Maybe she would have done it if Abraham didn't do it. Maybe she would be obligated to do it if Abraham didn't do it. Talmud says something very, very sharp. Okay? Very sharp. There is a verse that says that Abraham was commanded, Abraham and not Sarah. There is a verse that says that. You're standing the Torah. Standing. Where is it? Where's the verse in the Torah that says that Abraham was commanded and not Sarah? And I'll give you a hint. It's a verse we've already mentioned. It's a verse we already mentioned. The verse says, chapter 21 of Genesis, verse 4. Vayamal Avraham es Yitzchak beno. Abraham circumcised Yitzchak, Isaac, his son. Ben Shmonas Yamim, at the age of 8 days old. How does the verse end? Ka'asher tziva oso Elokim. As God commanded him. God commanded him, not her. Oh, that's what the Talmud says. Kasher tiva oso Elokim, as God commanded him, not her. Oso, v'lo osa. Oh, this is a classic Talmudic system where when it says something specific, it's this to the exclusion of something else. Abraham circumcised as Abraham was commanded, as he was commanded, not her. Oso, v'lo osa. Fine. Now the Talmud is still not convinced. We haven't solved all the problems. Because maybe, I feel like I'm about to launch into Yiddish. Be very careful. Because I'm getting into the Talmud here. Talmud in English is not quite as exquisite as Talmud in Yiddish. So forgive me if I just launch into Yiddish here. It says the Talmud, maybe this was true for Abraham. This is the first example, and maybe there's something different with Abraham. Abraham was commanded, and not Sarah. But maybe, subsequently, maybe it's the father and the mother. You prove to me that Abraham was commanded. Kasher tiva oso Elokim, he was commanded, not her. Maybe it's only a one-time exception. Who's to say that principle, that the father is obligated to circumcise the son, and not the mother, who's to say that is forever? Maybe that's a one-time thing for Abraham. Abraham and not Sarah. Oso v'lo osa, him, not her, were commanded. Ashtechon miat. You've proven to me that the case of Abraham is Abraham, not Sarah. I know that. I accept that. I cry uncle. It's true. Ledoros, forever, for all generations. How do you know? Says the Talmud. Tarna deber bishmo, kama kam shem atzav enel zirz minel ledoros. Okay. Talmud says a concept, very important concept, that the word tzav, which means to command, tziva, commanded, tzave, to command, vayitzav, and he commanded. That word, that verb of command is always forever. It's a principle throughout the whole Torah. We have a parsha in the Torah called Parsha Tzav. Vayikra Tzav Shemini, Tzav. And there Rashi tells us, and the Talmud tells us, it's a principle. Whenever there's a commandment with the word Tzav, there's other words that can mean command. Instruct, daber, speak. Or emor, say. There's different words that can convey a divine instruction. But when the word is tzav or tzave or tziva, that is a more powerful term of commandment, and that is always forever. So when the verse says, Kasher tziva oso Elokim, that God commanded Abraham, not Sarah, and that's forever. Father, not mother. Thus concludes the Talmud. We have brought scriptural proof to this idea that a father, and not the mother, is obligated, at least in the first part, circumcised. We don't know the other 5 different subjects haven't been proven. That's the continuation of the Talmud. There's a mitzvah that the father is obligated to the son. It's the father, not the mother. And the first example is circumcision. And how do we know? The Torah tells us that Abram was commanded, Abram, not Sarah, and therefore father, not mother. And it says the word tzav, which means command, and that means forever. Thus concludes the Talmud, 2 dots. Okay. Let's open up the Tosfos. You guys didn't do this. When Rabbi Wolbe comes, he's like, they didn't go to yeshiva. I'm not going to bring them the Talmud and the Rashi and the different and the Tosfos and the Rambam, and I'm going to go easy on them. And I say, no. You said, you give me this vaunted seat. I'm going wild, wild, wild with you. So on the inside of every margin of every Talmud, you have the commentary of Rashi. Rashi, of course, is the consummate commentator. On the external, the outer margins, you have the Tosfos commentary. Now, if Rashi is always helping you resolve and understand every word. What does it mean? How does it fit in? What's the flow? And so on. Rashi's always helping you understand what the Talmud is saying. Tosfos is always asking questions. And Tosfos asked a bomb question. That's a term from the yeshiva. When it's like a question that just explodes. It's a bomb question. Or as they say in Yiddish, a bomba. Not bamba. Bamba is what you give the kids so they don't get peanut allergies. Something else. A bomba. A bomb question. Vim toimar question. Lama likra. Farvas. For why? Why? Why must we have a verse? There's a principle in Talmud. You don't say anything superfluous. If there's something that can be derived without a verse, you won't have an extra verse to tell you something that I would have otherwise known. It's a principle in Talmud that you don't say something, the Torah doesn't say something extra. So if there is a verse that says God commanded him and not her, it must be that we needed that. Absent the verse, we wouldn't have known this. If the verse was moot, we wouldn't have known that Abraham and not Sarah are obligated. Tos asks the question, why do the verse tell me that Abraham is obligated, Abraham not Sarah, father not mother? It's a mitzvah, it's a time-bound positive mitzvah. Time-bound positive mitzvahs are only obligatory to men. That's a principle throughout all of the mitzvahs. So if circumcising your son is a time-bound mitzvah, from the general principle of time-bound mitzvahs asay shazman drama, time-bound mitzvahs, men are obligated and women are not obligated, I would know Abraham's obligated and not Sarah, every father and not every mother. So why does the Torah need to tell us an extra verse? Wow. Bomb. He said bomb. Splattered. Everything just, what a question. Tos asking a question. Genius. Why do you need an extra verse? It's superfluous. The verse says nothing. I know. The verse says nothing. I know that the father is obligated, not the mother. Why? Because it's a time-bound positive mitzvah. Time-bound positive mitzvah is the general rule. Men are obligated. Women are not obligated. Why? Separate discussion. But it's a principle. Men are obligated. Women are not obligated. So why do I need the verse, the extra, superfluous, redundant, extraneous verse to tell me, Abraham commanded him and not her. Tziva, command. He commanded him and not her. So I know fathers, not mothers. Don't say anything. Omit the verse. Save some extra parchment. Go a little easy on the scribe who has to write 304,805 letters. Go easy on him. And you know, father, not mother, because it's a time-bound positive mitzvah. That's the question. Bomb. Explosion. Learn this law that men are obligated, women are not obligated. Why? It's a positive time-bound mitzvah. Why? Why is that time-bound? Shenimo b'shmini. Because he's circumcised on day 8. V'nashim peturos, and women are absolved. They are not obligated in time-bound positive mitzvahs. That's a genius question of Tosfos. Why do I need a verse? How do we know this law? It's a verse. The Torah tells you it's a verse. Don't say the verse. And I know it's time-bound positive mitzvah. Women are not obligated. Time-bound, because you do day 7, day 6, day 5, and so on. Child is not circumcised. It only kicks in. The mitzvah only kicks in day 8. If someone, God forbid, were to be circumcised on day 2, I'm sorry, they are halachically uncircumcised. They need to have another circumcision, but there's nothing left to circumcise. That's a big problem. That's a big problem. And there's a solution to it. Speak to me after the class. I don't want to get too gory. I don't want to have the podcast be flagged as explicit and be banned from Apple Podcast. I'm already banned from China. You know that my podcast is banned in China. It's a joke. I say it's a joke. Why is it banned? It's banned because all podcasts are banned in China. But I like to say I'm banned, you know? I'm banned. We're banned in China. I don't want to be banned further. That's Tos's question. Ready for the answer? Oh, genius. What is the definition of a time-bound mitzvah? Shofar. We blow the shofar. Rosh Hashanah. Blow shofar. And then what happens after Rosh Hashanah? You can still blow the shofar. You want to annoy your neighbors, right? You can still blast the horn, but there's no mitzvah of shofar. And you got to wait 363 days later. Mitzvah comes again. And then it goes away and comes away. There's a certain cycle of time. Sometimes mitzvah's on, sometimes mitzvah's off. That's the concept of time by mitzvah. We say to lulav on Sukkot. Sukkot was, and then it's not, then it'll be again. There's a certain cycle of time in which this mitzvah gets activated and gets deactivated. Activated, deactivated, and so on. Yes? Yes. But child cannot be circumcised on day 7, or 6, or 5, or 4, or 3, or 2, or 1, or in utero. You can't do circumcision in utero. Not that anyone's tried, as far as I know. What happens day 8 happens? Day 8, crack of dawn. There's a new mitzvah that was activated. It's day 8. Child needs to be circumcised. Child needs to be circumcised. Day 8. Child needs to be circumcised. Child needs to be circumcised. When does that mitzvah stop? You told me that there's time by mitzvahs. It's on and it's off, and it's on and it's off. So you blow the shofar. Rosh Hashanah, you have mitzvah blow the shofar. It's on and it's off. Tefillin, you wear it by day, by night, it's off. That's day, it's on. There's a certain repeating cycle of time triggering and activating and deactivating the mitzvah. That's what it means. It's time bound. Child needs to be circumcised on day 8. Day 7, there's no mitzvah. Day 8, there is a mitzvah. But when does it end? When does it go back to? It never ends. If a child's 97 hasn't been circumcised, they're not a child anymore. They're not a child anymore if they're 97. But that mitzvah hasn't stopped. There hasn't been a single break. It's not time bound. No. You're misunderstanding what it means time bound, says Tosfos. Time bound doesn't mean that there's some element of time related to this mitzvah. It means that the mitzvah starts because of a time and ends because of a certain time. Once that time is over, once the time is elapsed, morning, you have to wear tefillin. At night, well, you lost, the period of time for the mitzvah has now ceased. And now it will come back again the next morning. Day 8, once it comes, it's on forever. This is not a mitzvah seshas grandma, and therefore the Torah did not tell us, oh, so v'lo osa, him, not her. If we don't have the extra verse in Scripture to tell us that Abraham, not Sarah, father, not mother, is obligated, I would not know that Sarah is excluded from this mitzvah, because it's not in the classification of time-bound mitzvahs that women are absolved from, that are not obligated. This is not, no. Yes, there's an element of time, sure. But this is not a case of mitzvah shman grama, a positive time-bound mitzvah, because once day 8 happens, it keeps on going forever. It keeps on going forever. Okay, did we resolve everything? Have we resolved the question as to why we need the verse and why we cannot rely? We have resolved it, right? Right? Wrong. I'll tell you why. Tosfos persists. Tosfos leaves no stone unturned. Tosfos persists. Vim Tomar. And perhaps you will ask another question. Akati mitzvah saseichas mangramahu. It's still a time-bound mitzvah. Ready? De'ein molin ela b'yoim. Because you only circumcise by day. Every day there's an obligation. Night, we don't do circumcision at night. Day, the obligation. Night, there's no obligation. Day, obligation. Night, no obligation. Just like tefillin. You wear by day, you don't wear by night. You wear by day, you don't wear by night. You wear by day, you don't wear by night. So from that, so forget about day 8. I agree with you. Day 8, that's not enough to absolve the mom, and therefore you need the verse. But there's another argument. It's not day 8 versus day 9 versus day 7. It's day versus night. Wow. We don't need the word. We don't need the verse. We can rely on this other argument. It's time-bound positive mitzvah. Why is it time-bound? Not because of day 8. It's time-bound because it's day, not versus night. Wow. I will tell you that by one of my son's bris, I gave a lecture by the bris about this subject, this Tosfos. It was like a very fiery lecture. You think I'm fired up now? No, I'm not fired up now. I was fired up then. I think it was by my son Yoshua's bris. It was on Shabbos, and I spoke about this. Because there's another point, another angle. But I can't tell it to you because it's already 12 o'clock. Our time's up. It was a delight. It was so wonderful coming here with y'all to discuss this very important subject, circumcision. Obligation of parent to child. Parent to child, specifically father, not mother. Why? It's a verse in Scripture. It's a verse in Scripture. Abraham circumcised his son as God commanded him, not her. Father, not mother. Abram, not Sarah. And the word Siva means forever. And then when Tosfos' question, wait a minute, it's a time-bound pause on mitzvah. So why do you need the verse? Why is it time-bound? Because you need day 8. So Tosfos, no, you misunderstood time-bound mitzvahs. It doesn't mean that it's day 8. Day 8 wouldn't disqualify the mom because once day 8 comes, it goes on forever. And Tosfos says, wait a minute, but we have another question. It's day, not night. And unfortunately, our time's up. I can't tell you the answer. So I will see y'all next time. And maybe, just maybe, if I get invited back, maybe, just maybe, now you'll say, you know what, Rabbi Walby, we'd like to have your brother back because he left us with some cliffhangers. Okay. I would have a great Shabbos. And if you want to know the answer, you can send me an email. RabbiWalby@gmail.com. And maybe I'll give you an answer, or maybe I'll say, gotta invite me back. I don't know. It's a good question. It's a very good question. It's a very serious subject. But I'm looking forward to having maybe another opportunity to do the Thinking Talmudist, to be invited back as a guest. So I hope you're not too mad at me for leaving some cliffhangers. I hope you're not too mad at me, but I really enjoy this. And thank you for inviting me and for being so hospitable to me here. And I'll see y'all next time.